Welcome to Comics League. I'm Jared, and today it's going to be a twofold little video. But first off, I'd like to welcome my friend, the Nerdman, to Comics League.
Hey, buddy.
So today we're going to talk about the Ray Fisher stuff and a little bit more on the Zack Snyder Rolling Stones drama. And then we're going to talk about why Nerdman and I are huge fans of the DC Trinity. Kind of end on a high note.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we wanted to do this for a while, so we're just glad we can finally get together and do this. So you want to start on the Ray stuff?
Well, I wanted to say, we are good friends, and I'm so glad to have kind of met you as a fellow, extreme DC fan. Not just Batman. You love the Trinity, you love the other DC characters.
Dude,
you love the same movies I like.
When you were on K-Dot's stream talking about this, and you guys said that DC is better than Marvel, I legit out loud said, they're right.
Exactly.
No truer words have ever been uttered, my friend.
So, in that sense, I don't want this to be like, too adversarial.
Of course
so just to let you know, because I think we have a little bit of a difference of opinion on like the article, but I'm gonna kind of keep it, down and just try and like go over like the facts and ask you questions,
okay.
to get what I'm missing, maybe because I feel like maybe I'm missing something from
I appreciate that.
Support Ray Fisher or support, well, specifically Ray Fisher and Snyder in this, but less Snyder, but more Ray Fisher, should I say?
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And I appreciate you looking for other perspectives. But a lot of people on the internet don't do that.
So where do we start? It's your show. You told me how you want to start.
All right, you mentioned before we started recording that you had some stuff about Ray you wanted to talk about. So let's start with that.
Well, I wanted to go through this article because I haven't really gone through this article like very closely. The first thing that I noticed, is that, there are people saying it's a hit piece, and in all likelihood with Hollywood and the spitefulness of certain people, it probably is, to some extent. But it being a hit piece, does that mean that the allegations are untrue?
Well, and here's I'm sorry, but here's my perspective on the hit piece part. This would be, in my mind, the hit piece argument would be less convincing had, for one thing, this author had mentioned anyway what Snyder went through with like the media, with like Warner Brothers taking his movie away, destroying it, blaming it on him, doing all this stuff, losing faith in their filmmaker and undermining him, and then the whole thing with Autumn, R.I.P., and the whole thing with like the campaign. This thing was very, very, very one-sided against Snyder. And really, here's the thing also. Let's not forget, for like years and years and years, the Rolling Stones and all these different trades were kept telling us, okay, the Snyder cut is never going to release. They're never going to release the Snyder cut. We all know what happened with that.
Which at the time, actually, I mean, given like, the pandemic and whatever, that, I mean, there's an argument to be said that that's the reason that it came out. But I feel it would have come out anyway.
It was because it was greenlit in 2019.
Yeah, I think it would have come out because I think there was not such bad will towards the Snyder fan base until Ray Fisher came out and said some stuff. And really, I think the DC has been in a free fall ever since then. And then you've got Ezra, then you've got Amber. It's like it's just been one bad luck after another, while actually producing some pretty good movies, which is
the Batman.
Quite upsetting. Like the Batman. I'm a big fan of Shazam. I'm a big fan of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think
heck yeah, because you have taste. That's why.
I think it's one of the most incredible comic book movies made. I think it's got some flaws. I see the flaws that people say with it. But anyway, that aside, you know, ever since, as I said, like they've been in this kind of tumultuous situation always with their fan base. And I think that's where the hostility towards, you know, the Snyder verse and continuing it in any way came. Because when Kevin Sugiura was ousted, I think there might have been a lot of people who were open to continuing the Snyderverse. I remember specifically there was about maybe a 2-day grace period when they first announced the Snyder Cut, and fans were asking, you know, Warner executives, hey, does this mean we're gonna get maybe the original Suicide Squad, you know, the unbutchered version of Suicide Squad? And they were like, yeah, possibly. You know, they were open to a lot of things back then, I think. And then Ray Fisher started. And once that started, and once the fan base started attacking the executives, before, may I add, there was proof that they'd even done anything. Just in virtue of an accusation, these people started getting attacked, hounded off any social media, hounded from being able to do appearances, you know, Comic Cons or anything like that. That's when the hostility came, and that's when it was like, nope, we're not continuing with this anymore. And that's where I've got a I'm kind of like, you know, when the Snyder fan base is saying, hey, you know, this is Warner Brothers' fault, or this is this person's fault, I'm like, actually, no, it's kind of like a little bit of both. It's a bit of them being stubborn, but also you being, there is a toxic element in this fan base that, you know, as I said, like, attack people even prior, even if you want to say these people are guilty of whatever they're accused of, they were attacked prior to any proof being put out. They were attacked on the basis of Ray Fisher for a year or two, just going, hey, I'm gonna bring out some evidence soon, but these guys are scumbags. I'm gonna bring out some evidence, you know, in 3 months, but trust me, these guys are scumbags. And that was enough for them. They were already guilty just by that. No due process, no investigation, nothing. So that's my beginning bit, I guess, to just say that.
Which,
and then
I 100% acknowledge that first off, there was a toxic part of this fan base. We're really in DC films in general, because let me put it this way, there was to a point, if you gave any criticism to Matt Reeves, the Batman, you were like attacked on social media. It's like, I got into a Twitter argument with someone for defending Zack Snyder's Batman, and it's like, they started like actually insulting my intelligence. So I'm like, okay, but I get it that, yes, 100%. I've seen it. There are some really, really, really hostile people in the Snyderverse community, but where I sort of like on the fan, talking about the fandom part, what I do say is that there's too much of the holier than thou attitude. In other words, non-Snyder, the non-Snyder community likes to think that they're like above,
not toxic. And
not
they
toxic.
They are toxic as well.
I've seen some really, really, I've seen some people on streams that are the biggest, like, obnoxious and very loudmouth and very hostile to Snyder fans. So I'm like, you can't, part of the reason why the fan base got to this point is because of this hostility that's happened even before Justice League, because really the way I see with comic books, with comic fandom, if you make any changes to these characters, or if you do take a character in a different direction but still leads to the same result, like with Zack Snyder's Superman, and if you express like interest in that iteration anyway, you are automatically attacked and called not a real DC fan.
See, and I think I've told you this. I'm not sure, but one of my greatest regrets was, as a fan, is being part of the chorus of people who was not against Man of Steel, because I'm not the biggest fan of that movie. I like Batman v Superman a hell of a lot more, I like Zack Snyder's Justice League a hell of a lot more. But for me, I was like part of this kind of chorus of people who were like, that's not Superman. And I shouldn't have done that. What I should have done is just criticize the movie, because I think the movie can be criticized on its own merit without having to go to that argument that that's not the Superman from comics. In Superman 376, he said he would never kill. It's like there's so many iterations of Superman.
Multiverse, man, multiverse.
That you can't really reasonably argue that that's not, because Superman is, outside of like, obviously he has to be sent from Krypton.
Yeah, exactly.
He has to have super strength and be able to fly and have laser vision and stuff like that. He has to be raised by the Kents in Kansas. Once you've got all of those elements, right? What his morality is, it's hard for me to say because I'm such a Superman fan, right? So, but my point is, once you go down that road of like, that's not Superman, right? Or that's not whatever, it opens up the floodgates for all of these entitled people to start spouting off at the mouth with creative people who've actually done very good jobs in films, in my opinion, to start going, well, that's not, this, or and it gets absurd. It gets to the point where it's like, that's not Taskmaster, from the comics. It's like, what are you saying? It's a different story, and the storyteller is trying to, it's making a film. They're not making the comic, they're making the film. And in this film, the themes of that character played into the main character, which is Black Widow. Or, that's not Flash, right? That's not,
his lightning's not supposed to be blue.
Yeah, that's not that's Wally West Flash. That's not Wally West Flash. Who gives a This is the essence of the character. Has he been a funny character before? Do people know him as a funny character? The Justice League animated show, that was people's favorite,
that was mine.
Of it was like, oh, Flash is a funny character. Half those people who watched that show didn't know it was, like casually, didn't know it was Wally West or Barry Allen. Do you know what I mean? They just liked the Flash as a funny character.
Yeah.
Right? So, them taking Barry Allen's story, right, which is a much more compelling origin story, and then giving them, Wally West's personality, which is a much more, as I said, I like Barry Allen, but I think a much more commercially, appealing character is Wally West. Plus, you want to differentiate him from Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. You want to have a mix of characters. It made complete sense that you wouldn't want a dry, not so kind of humorless, Barry Allen, who's just like the.
Every team has to have has to ultimately have some comic relief.
Right, exactly. So, all of that kind of stuff. Plus, I suspect it was, some of that came from the homophobic stuff, that they just didn't like Ezra Miller because he wore dresses and because he said he's non-binary.
There's an element to it. Yeah, there's an element to it.
They said they're non-binary, pardon me. And I think that there's elements of that to it. So in any case, that's what I felt like that Superman critique opened the floodgates to that. And my critique, and I think certain people's critique, wasn't so much of that it wasn't Superman, but it was a critique of the movie, the plot holes, the plot conveniences, some of the fact that I felt the character was pretty wooden. I felt like they focused too much on him being an alien and less of his humanity, and it didn't go well with the theme of the story of hope and etc. etc.
Okay.
I think you could have avoided this whole "it's not Superman" argument to discuss that film and say what you felt the problems were with it. So I do regret that. Well, why did we go onto this tangent?
Well, because we were talking about how yes, I 100% acknowledge that there is a minority of people, a vocal minority of people in the Snyderverse community that are like ridiculous. I will admit that first off. I've seen these people. But my problem is when the other side likes to paint themselves as this perfect utopian society when they're clearly not.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and I agree with that. That the opposing side, the anti-Snyder people, can be very toxic and very malicious and very like, get over it. Like, why should people, if they want? And by the way, I'm not a restore the Snyderverse person, so I wouldn't mind. I think they could do both.
Well, they definitely could.
I just don't want Snyder taking over the whole universe,
and that was never
all of DC. But like for me, I'm not like a restore the Snyderverse person. But for you to go to people like, oh, just get over it, like just like they want the film to come out. Let them put their hashtags out, as long as they're not insulting anyone, as long as they're not sending like death threats to people or doing any of that kind of stuff. Let them have at it. They want this film. Let them do that, but don't try and harm other creators or or torpedo other creators works while in the process of doing that, review bombing, going the Batman shit, and horrible. All of this kind of stuff. Okay, which brings us to a good point now. We might as well go over one of the first accusations before we go into the Ray Fisher stuff of
are you talking about the bots thing?
I want to talk about the bots thing, and I want to talk about this this director of versus
I know what you're talking about.
And he was asking Zack Snyder not to get the Snyder fans to back off and not review bomb his movie.
So my problem with what the reporter says now, this could have happened. The reason why I'm a little bit like did it, it's because there's no, she didn't directly quote anyone, and in other words, and that's a lot of this article. It's a lot of hearsay. Oh, so if it's a lot of hearsay, it's like he said this, he said this. Okay, cool. Can you at least give me a quote from the director of Godzilla versus Kong?
Godzilla versus Kong. Don't you feel that that's the same? Not to deviate like too far, but don't you think that's the same with the Ray Fisher articles? Though there's a lot of hearsay in that.
To a certain degree, yes. And I always said, let me put it this way, dude. If what you're saying happened, great. Thank you for giving us all this. But eventually, you're gonna have to give like more direct quotes as to what happened, more like hard, solid, irrefutable, non-hearsay evidence. Because ultimately, by the way, in the court of law, hearsay is not you can't use hearsay as evidence.
You can't use hearsay as evidence.
And that's why a lot of the accusations against Snyder made in this article, I have a hard time believing, because it's all hearsay.
But she actually said that he called her himself and quoted him as saying, hey, you might want to take this and that out of your article, because I've got a very rabid fan base. So that's something that if if it isn't true, he can literally sue her for slander, right?
Yeah, but here's the part on that too, is that she's not bringing up like, because here's the thing, he could have been showing genuine concern, saying, okay, so if you if you put this in here, just telling you in advance, fans are going to overreact. In other words, she painted it too much as a sinister like statement, and I guess kind of what I'm saying is that she didn't give a lot onto the context or like anything that was going on in the conversation that would indicate, was Snyder saying, well, my fan base is going to come after you? Or is he really saying, well, if you do this, my fan base can overreact to things, so they would come after you no matter what I say. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, but then that means that he has an awareness that his fan base can come after people, can be rabid, can be toxic.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
And yet he never chastises that. He never comes out and says, hey, you can't do that. I love that you enjoy my movies and you think that they're great movies and all of that. But you cannot, in virtue of that, then go after journalists, go after send them death threats, and then this kind of threat, try and cancel them. You can't do that. And the fact that he hasn't come out and said that, and rather would phone a journalist privately and tell them, oh, hey man, my fan base, whether he's trying to be cool or not, it shows an awareness of what he's aware of what his fan base does and doesn't say anything about it. And I find that, problematic, to say the least.
I can say that well, let me put it this way. He could have done a little more to say, okay, guys, just dial it down. That's the one thing I will like acknowledge that yes, Zack could do a better job as telling people just calm down, enjoy my movies, fine, but don't go after people. That's not gonna help anyone.
Right. But do we want to go over the article, or is it just way too long?
Way too long for an article. For
is there any poignant bits? The bots thing, I think, was stupid.
Because it's like, okay, 87% is authentic. Really?
Right.
So.
Yeah, I was saying 13% bots isn't even that much, like in the grand scheme of things.
By the way, 25% of the Rolling Stones Twitter followers are bots.
Right, exactly. I think in any fan base now, there's going to be like bots. There's going to be people who are like crazy enough to be like, oh, I'm such a big fan. I mean, like the Star Wars things. You think that when they're getting down, like, Star Wars, what was it, the second one or whatever in this new series?
Oh, you mean The Last Jedi?
The Last Jedi and all of that kind of stuff. People coming after them because of like their racial, like they cast, black or Asian people and stuff like that. You think that fan base isn't full of bots like downvoting, like, the Star Wars movies, saying, hey, like everyone hates this movie. I personally, what was it called? The Last Jedi?
Yeah, Last Jedi.
I personally, people think I'm crazy for this. People think I'm nuts. You're going to hear something loopy here. I think that's the second best Star Wars movie.
That is loopy.
Is it the Last Jedi where it's the guy who directed Knives Out?
I think it is, yeah.
That for me is the second best Star Wars movie. No, third best Star Wars movie. There's Empire Strikes Back, which is the best one. Then I like Star Wars. What the the first one in the prequels.
Phantom Menace.
Is it the Phantom Menace?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. And then I like that one. Because I think they're genuinely boring, most of the Star Wars movies. I don't think they're very good.
Some of them have like really, really, really long parts. So I'm like, okay, wrap it up, guys.
So to me, as a non-Star Wars fan, just watching it as a film, like not trying to, not, I don't care about these characters, right? Like, you know, too much. So I'm just watching it as a film and what's entertaining and what drives the story forward quicker and what looks beautiful and what is shot like great and has great music and scope. And I'm telling you, I think The Last Jedi is quite a thrilling movie, like for the most part. Like,
it was shot well, I'll give you that, and certain points of the story were enjoyable for me. It's not my favorite. My favorite still is episode 3, because I like seeing Anakin's final like drop down into evil. Because then you finally see, okay, so this is how he got to be Darth Vader. This is why he became this really, really evil dude in the other 3 movies, and it makes his redemption in 6 so much better.
Yeah, but I just don't think that a movie makes billions of dollars if there isn't repeat viewing, if there isn't a contingency of people who really like it.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
I think that really frustrates certain Star Wars fans, and I'm sure they have bots in their community. There's no way if you didn't do an investigation into like the Star Wars community, you know, fan base, like
I'm sure
that they aren't bots doing the opposite, you know. So 13% in the grand scheme of things.
What?
Like, okay. So, you know, that's 87% of people who genuinely like this movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Or just wanted it to be released.
Dude, I can go online right now and just watch people's just general reactions, like of just people who are casual kind of people, never seen it before, you know, like the oh, my girlfriend watches Zack Snyder's Justice League for the first time, or you know, or just people just watching it and just being blown away.
My mom is not a superhero movie fan by far. I showed her this movie because she enjoyed 300, so I figured, oh, okay, it's another Zack Snyder movie, it's a comic book movie, something I like. And
she hadn't watched Man of Steel or BVS,
we watched it previously. In other words, I told her, okay, so let's watch all 3 of these movies so you can see how it builds, so you can at least get the full story, so you won't be like totally, because to a certain degree, you can't go into Justice League totally blind, because there are certain things they to a certain degree you can, kind of, but I wanted her to have the full story experience. Loved it.
Yeah. I watched it with somebody, it was a Spanish friend of mine, who was my girlfriend's flatmate, and he loved it.
Oh yeah, my favorite scene.
He didn't see BVS or Man of Steel.
My favorite scene, dude, is when Steppenwolf's about to axe Cyborg and Superman just super speeds down. The axe hits the shoulder and he goes, "I'm not impressed," and then just beats it, just destroys him.
Yeah, and it's like fun. He watched the Batman just before that, and he thought that was actually quite boring. Like
to a certain degree, that movie was really long.
Yeah, so you know that just goes to show, you know, in terms of like just casual viewers, I was shocked. I was like, wow, you know, like I think a couple of my friends, like my girlfriend and another friend of mine, really loved the Batman, and then 2 of them just didn't get on with it at all. So whereas everyone liked the Justice League movie. But anyway, that's besides the point. So we've covered the bots thing. I don't know what does the article even say about it?
All it says is that
can you look up bots, like search bots in the article, and so
I gotcha. All it's really talking about is how Warner Brothers apparently launched an investigation that concluded in like 2021 about how many bots were involved with this movement. And they found like, okay, 10%, 13% were like bot accounts or exhibited behavior that is consistent with bots. So that's really it. So I'm like, okay, well, and that's the other problem I have with this article. Okay, so the headline is "Fake Accounts Fueled the Snyder Cut Online Army." That's such a small part of this article.
Right.
So you're telling me it would have been it would have been a better title to be more consistent with the article had it mentioned Zack Snyder possibly manipulated Ray Fisher or something like that into revealing accusations or something like that. No, it's because that's really what the article's about. It's not really about the bots.
Yeah, and also MCU, the biggest, whatever.
That's a toxic fan base, bro.
Oh, it's a toxic one to a certain degree, but I think they're a little bit less toxic because, like, I think if you saw critics going against the MCU the way they go against DC movies, then you would see the toxicity come out. But like, as far as it goes, they're pretty happy, with how critics and everybody
plus,
but I'll say this, that there's bots in that as well. You can't tell me, like, some of these movies getting, like, however much
Captain Marvel, you can't tell me that. But
bots.
I will say this, though. The other difference with the MCU is that the MCU is actually supported by the studio. They had the Kevin Feige guy saying, okay, just make your movie. They weren't just like taking the movie away from a dude, destroying it, and then releasing it. In other words, they weren't treating their directors like Warner Brothers eventually treated Zack Snyder. That's another reason why the SnyderVerse community got so crazy, is because also Warner Brothers kind of also mess with Snyder and Ayer like a lot, and they're supposed to be the studio that's for directors.
Sure, and I mean, look, I've got a bit of a. I get it. I don't, I personally, if I was, a studio head, I wouldn't mess with the directors unless I thought, like, this is just whatever they're doing is just really terrible, and we've given them a lot of money to do this, and it's better to try and do something with it. But like, in general, I would allow I would say my problems with the script or the whatever prior to it being shot. What I mean? Like, I wouldn't, but Man of Steel was Zack Snyder's movie.
Yeah. No,
completely
I acknowledge that. Yeah.
And it was divisive. And
however,
it had a second week drop off that was very high.
But it made as much. Actually, when you look at Snyder's early movies, they made on par, if not more, than the early MCU movies.
True. That's to be expected, given the IPs involved. But sure, I'll grant you that. But that was divisive. Okay. BVS. Now, they told him to cut that down to 2.5 hours, but they said, do as you wish. However you want to cut it down to 2.5 hours is up to you. All right. And instead of taking out the dream sequences, which would have been the logical thing to take out and release maybe as like online as like a kind of after credits kind of thing, he takes out the main tissue of the storyline, which is Lex Luthor's plan, and he takes out Superman saving people. He takes out the heart of the story, essentially, so that he can put a bunch of dream sequences in it, which didn't really flow that well with the film. So I'm like, yes, that's the studio's fault, but like at the same time, they are in it to make money. And let's be honest, a 2.5 hour movie in general, like 80% of the time will make more than a 3 hour movie, no matter how good the 3 hour movie is. So you can understand the studio's reasoning, cut it down to 2.5 hours, and then it's his choice what he needs to take out. And there were many, many irrelevant scenes in his theatrical cut rather than the relevant scenes. Now, I personally like the theatrical cut. I liked the other cut, the long extended cut more. And to be honest, my thought was when I saw the extended cut, look, if you didn't like this movie before, you're not gonna like it now.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you liked the movie when you saw it in the 2.5 hour version, you're just gonna like it a little bit more. So
my one problem, like you, I enjoyed the theatrical version for what it was. My one problem with it is that the theatrical part, like essentially lacked the scene that explained that there was a bomb and that the wheelchair was lined with lead, so that's why Superman couldn't find the bomb. So they made it look like he was an idiot and didn't see the bomb.
Right, but you could have, again, as I said, like that could have been put in instead of a dream sequence, or they could have cut down that dream sequence a lot.
He could have cut down the dream sequence. I don't think he could really take it out because remember that was him hinting at the larger story. Well,
you could have had that in. If you think about what you want, a coherent movie or an advert for the next movie. If the movie you're watching now isn't coherent, why would you be interested in the next movie? So it's like there's this Justice League cameos, right? Like clip.
But
right?
Remember, so
it's called Dawn of Justice. Well, yes. Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman are Dawn of Justice.
They should have just called it Trinity Dawn of Justice. That would have been a much more fantastic title.
Yeah, I mean, you had Wonder Woman in it. You didn't have to cut the Wonder Woman scenes. That would have been Dawn of Justice. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's 3 of them, right?
Yeah, but see, with the Justice League thing, remember that at this point, after Man of Steel, Warner Brothers came to Zack and said, we want our Avengers. We need a Justice League movie now. Start putting in the Justice League members. So that's why he put in that Justice League ad thing. Probably why he couldn't take that out, because he's like, okay, they want the Justice League in here, so I have to start seeding the Justice League. So I can see why he would keep in those clips.
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that, but like we do know that it was Zack Snyder, by his own admission in this article that I have, that brought up the Batman being in this sequel to Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was Zack Snyder who brought that up. That was his idea, and that's when the studio ran with like, oh, all right, let's make this, after seeing Avengers, make this more of a kind of like introduction to the Justice League. But without that kind of singular thought, he could have said, they really did give him a lot of power in the beginning. And if he wanted to, I'm sure he could have said, look, dudes, I get you want to rush to this, but I've just made Man of Steel. Let's get another director to like do a Batman, a Wonder Woman, at least, before we launch into this Justice League.
I agree with you on that.
We can put a cameo in the Batman of maybe Cyborg. We can put a cameo in Wonder Woman of maybe,
or hinting that they exist.
Of Aquaman or something like that. You know what I mean? And then you would have had your thing where next movie's Justice League.
That would have worked.
Get at least the Trinity out of the way, get a couple of cameos in there, then we put the Justice League. So
that works. I could see that.
I don't see that there was no way of him discussing. It's because he wanted Batman. He wanted to do Batman. That's what I think. There was that fanboy kind of thing of him, like giddy. I knew he liked Batman more than Superman. You can tell by the films.
Yeah.
Like he's more of a Batman fan than a Superman fan. And as soon as he had an excuse to get on Batman, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna, and that was a mistake. That was, even though I like the film, I feel like it was too, it was too soon. It was too much. It was too many ideas in that movie. I love all the ideas, the philosophical aspect of that movie, etc., etc. But yeah, go on. I was going to have you. You can have the last word, but we should get back on track to this.
Yeah, well, get back. I was just saying I agree with you on that point. So yeah.
So let's just. What is your view on Ray Fisher, so that I can ask you what's your what do you make of Ray Fisher, his allegations? What is your view? Because
I need to see more before I make a sort of like a sort of assessment of what he's saying and what this means for Warner Bros. Because so far he has been super vague about what specifically happened on the Justice League set. Because 100%, if he knows something and if something happened, because according to Enosh, from the point at Dexter Lounge, Ray did go through some stuff on there that is akin to racism. So I'm like, okay, if he did, say it, bring it out. If anything is a great time to start bringing it out now in light of this article too, he should be preparing a statement to air this now, particularly when this article comes out that sort of accuses him of being used as Snyder's tool to like hit Warner Brothers.
Right. I mean, and there's a lot of I would say there's a word that they use. What's not convenient evidence?
Circumstantial
evidence. Thank you.
No problem.
There's a lot of circumstantial evidence with like, oh, Zack Snyder, this happened to Zack Snyder here, and then Ray Fisher comes out with a story 3 days after. You know, that's circumstantial evidence. That's not real evidence. You have no emails between Zack Snyder and Ray
exactly.
Fisher
that's my other problem with the article.
Did all of this, so let's keep that in account, right? Like, they have no evidence whatsoever of this. This is just pure speculation of circumstance.
Yeah.
That being said, I have always found Ray Fisher extremely suspect. And let me tell you, from a Black person's point of view,
sure,
I never, ever want to just be like, oh, I don't believe a brother.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't believe, a Black person who's accusing, I will always, like, I'll give the other person the benefit of the doubt because I believe
justice,
in due process.
Right?
Yeah, I believe in due process, but I'm never just going to dismiss, an allegation, because I've faced it, I've experienced it, and I've experienced people being like, oh no, maybe it was this, or maybe it was that, and maybe it was a misunderstanding. And it's like, no, this was a racist thing that happened to me, so I've experienced it, and it's blown up in people's faces. I remember being with a friend in India where like it ended up blowing up in his face because he kept denying like I was going through all of this shit, and like, oh, maybe it was something else, and then we ended up getting attacked, because of this, and then it dawned on him, oh no, these people really were doing these things. But anyway, so to me, I always take those allegations very seriously, but I have to say, I've always, the thing that's made me suspect is, one, the delays, the continual delays and the excuses with coming out with what actually happened, right? It was just like, oh, I'm going to tell you in a month, guys. Don't worry, just keep you. But these guys are scumbags. I'm going to tell you in 3, but trust me, these guys are scumbags. Once I tell you all of this, you'll realize these guys are scumbags. Well, I don't have to tell you. It's my business. I don't have to tell you at all. It's not my job to. But these guys are scumbags. So attack them on social media and stuff like that. But it's not my duty or whatever to tell you. No, it is your fucking duty. It's your duty to a reasonable system of justice, a reasonable system of accountability, that an accuser or an accused gets to face the accusations. It's not, you can't just be like, I'm going to accuse somebody, have them be harmed for it, like in terms of their reputation, but I'm just going to leave it out there with vague kind of allegations. That, first of all, kind of bothered me. Then I saw his behavior on social media, which was, even like just recently, he was like, oh, gotcha, because you said that the article was going to be out at 6 o'clock, but actually it was out at 5. Gotcha. That means what? Are you actually going to talk about whether it was 5, 6, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock rock? What was it? Are you going to actually say that these things didn't happen, that you weren't in any way, respond to the allegations? No,
they
Zack
did.
Snyder didn't put me up to it.
He did follow up with that, and it turns out they did. In the article now, you can find it. They changed what the phrasing of that to say Ray Fisher could not be reached for a comment instead of saying he denied comment.
No, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, are you going to face the accusation that you and Snyder conspired to ruin anybody's career who was getting in the way of Zack Snyder? Because let me start from the beginning, because I was following this from the beginning. Ray Fisher puts out a statement about Josh Whedon. Josh Whedon is gross, disgusting, and all of this kind of stuff. Okay. Soon after, within maybe 1 or 2 tweets, Josh Whedon was forgotten about, because Josh Whedon had no power, right? Whedon was gone.
And right? You had corroborating people that came forward even from Buffy and said, yeah, he was a dirtbag.
That's not corroborating. That's not corroborating. What you're talking about is the Justice League thing. The other thing is another completely somebody else's story, right? And you have to investigate that separately, as far as I'm concerned. But it went from Josh Whedon, and Josh Whedon was the main player in all this. Josh Whedon was the one who did all this stuff to him, right? Yeah. Then soon after, the whole focus, all of it went on Jeff Johns, John Burke, and Walter Hamada. You hardly even saw Josh Whedon mentioned in his tweets anymore. Even though this is the guy, he said, like, hey, these guys just enabled Josh Whedon. Josh Whedon was the main person who did all this stuff to him, but he was after them. Focus, laser focus. And now not only was Josh Whedon racist to him, but so was Jeff Johns. Now, I'm going to admit, I'm a Jeff Johns fan, right? So I didn't.
Me too. You can see on my collection, I got Jeff Johns comics.
Yeah. So, he was the guy who got me back into writing, because I just loved his style of breaking down comic book characters and archetypes. So I am a Jeff Johns fan, and I never really liked Josh Whedon. I don't like his films. I don't like, I don't like
me neither,
his TV series.
Except for like Firefly and Serenity, but that's it.
I think he's highly overrated. But still, I believe that he himself deserves due process, and I would have argued the same thing about him. Nonetheless, when he started going after Jeff Johns, I was like, I took, particular attention. So I'm going to freely admit that, and be open about that. Nonetheless, I look at these allegations, right? First of all, about Josh Whedon, and nothing strikes me as racist. Most of it just strikes me as he's being an asshole. He's being a bit of a.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
He's a director. He's got a kind of directorial manner. Style. That's not just him. That's a bunch of directors. Go look up David O. Russell. You want to see a director losing it. You know what I mean? Constantly. And this is a multi-nominated Oscar-winning, guy. If Josh Whedon was worse than him, I want to see the proof. Because if that guy's still operating in Hollywood and directing movies, I don't understand how Josh Whedon isn't, from what has been described in these articles. And then you go on to Jeff Johns, and this is where I want you to speak. I've looked at the allegations, and I can't make head or tail of them. There is nothing there of any substance.
Yeah. See, when I look at it, when I
or
look
John Berg, by the way, or Walter Hamada.
Well, because here's the thing: if you're trying to accuse, like, take John Berg and Walter Hamada, if you're trying to accuse them of racism, you have to actually have like malice, and that's really hard to prove. And second off, you have to give me more than you just pointing the finger at them, like you said, because yeah, with those other two guys, you can say they created like a hostile work environment or something like that. That you can maybe like promote a little easier than saying they were racist. And then when you get to the Jeff Johns thing, it's like, okay, again, going back to what you said about Joss Whedon. At worst, Jeff Johns was being a bit of an a-hole. That's at worst. It didn't really scream racist to me.
Right. And I mean, I'm glad you're saying this, because I didn't want to get off on like, because I know when people discuss this kind of stuff, it can get a little bit testy and stuff like that and heated. And I'm glad we're being, respectful of each other.
Of course.
But, I'm just going to go over some of the accusations just quickly because I didn't get to do all of them. I was trying to go through the article. So one of them says, this was from the Ray Fisher article with THR. Multiple sources tell THR that the show's creators were passionate about doing something non-traditional, some non-traditional casting, and that Reggie John Page, who would go on to become a breakout star of Bridgerton, had auditioned for the role of Superman's grandfather. But Johns, who was overseeing the project, said Superman could not have a black grandfather. The creators also wanted to make one superhero character, Adam Strange, gay or bisexual, but sources say Johns vetoed the idea.
Well,
so that's one of the allegations.
First off, that gives me a higher opinion of Jeff Johns, because it's like, yeah, he's against like haphazardly changing these characters' characteristics for no reason. And with the Superman's grandfather, I mean, I understand where they're coming from because Clark's an alien.
Right.
But the audience is not going to buy it. Yes, you could probably make the argument in universe that it's possible, but the audience is not going to buy it. Particularly if at the time with Krypton, they were kind of trying to link this to Man of Steel and Henry Cavill's Superman.
And here's what also annoys me about all of this. Krypton, which he was the showrunner for, he was one of the showrunners for, is full of diverse casting.
Yes! Have you seen Zod?
Zod, his grandmother, all of it, black. So there's other, I'm sure there was other races as well. It's full of fucking diverse casting. So the guy didn't want Superman's grandfather to be black. So for the what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, of all if it was a whole white cast, then I'd see the argument. Like, I'd be like, oh, all right, this guy is a bit of a so he does. Not only does he not want Superman, the whole cast is white as well. Come on, man. Like, what's going on here? You can't do something different. Superman's an alien. Why can't his grandfather be black? But the guy was just saying, look, in my opinion, Superman is known as a white character. He's good. And
the audience is not going to buy it. He's also
not going to buy it. But
the thing of the audience.
Zod's cool. Like we could have Zod black. We could have the grandmother. All of these characters who are black, who weren't traditionally black before. So okay, why is this a thing? It's a difference of opinion. It's a difference of opinion. Then we have the Quasimodo accusation. Oh, by the way, Jeff responded to that accusation. Jeff celebrates and supports LGBTQ characters, including Batwoman, who in 2006 was reintroduced as an LGBTQ in a comic book series co-written by Johns, says Johns rep in an email. Johns also pitched Warner's on developing a television show around the first LGBTQ lead DC superhero television series he had. As for the role of Superman's grandfather, the rep says John believed fans expected the character to look more like young.
Yeah, Jeff Johns. 100%. So Jeff Johns is like, yeah, I'm for the characters if there's a reason for them to have these characteristics, and it's not going to like. it's not going to make the audience think, well, I'm not sure I can buy that, because ultimately it doesn't matter if the cast is diverse if no one watches the show. So it's I can totally see where Jeff Johns is coming from on that.
Yeah, so that's one of Ray Fisher's, he had to pull out something from his ass and like to explain all his racist allegations, and that was one of them. Then you had the Quasimodo incident. Jeff Johns says that I think you should play Cyborg like Quasimodo. I mean, I can look up the exact thing.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. Which, okay, in terms of that, well,
yeah, go on.
See, here's the thing with it depends on your iteration, because here's the thing. Cyborg in like animation has never really been like a Quasimodo. In fact, Cyborg in comics has never been like moving around like Quasimodo. So I could see why Cyborg would be a little bit like, why Ray would be like, why am I moving like Quasimodo? It's the same reason why he was upset when Jeff Johns said, can you say booyah in the movie? He's like, Cyborg doesn't do that. What's the deal? So I can see where Ray would go, why, but that doesn't scream racism to me.
No, it doesn't. It's an interpretation of a character, essentially. It's a writer's interpretation of a character, especially the character that he was playing in the Justice League movie. So, can I see why he said Quasimodo? Quasimodo is a hero, a heroic character that's misunderstood because of his appearance. Play it like Quasimodo. Why is that even the fact that he even brought it up is what bothers me, because that to me screams that you're dealing with if he genuinely thinks that's racist, then you're dealing with an incredibly sensitive individual. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not a matter of, you could take away some of these other allegations and like, let's put them in the corner over here, because we're going to deal with some of the ones that I feel, he does have a point on. But the fact that you would, you're trying to accuse somebody and say like, hey man, this guy he was a scumbag and he was a racist to me. And you think in your little brain that I'm gonna relay this story of when he told me to play a character like Quasimodo as part of to buffer up my evidence, just strikes me as like,
you're kind of reaching.
At least you're reaching. You're either lying, reaching, or sensitive. I don't know which one it is. Tell me, because either you're too stupid to understand that's a argument, especially when you're talking about Cyborg, or you're very clever and you're lying. I don't know which one it is. And you're trying to, because the fan base who anything that is against Zack Snyder or Zack Snyder's vision, they will just dogpile on it no matter what.
That's
right?
true.
So that was my thing with that. I mean, you've said your piece that you don't think.
All I have in there. I mean, the only way I could see him doing him like justifying his race is because he's saying, well, it's dehumanizing and everything, but you're playing a cyborg.
Right.
But I can see where he would be like, why do I have to be like Quasimodo? Because Cyborg doesn't move like Quasimodo and doesn't act like Quasimodo in any of the iterations that we've seen of Cyborg. So I could see where he would be like, okay, I disagree with this like direction of the character, but it doesn't scream racist to me, I don't think.
No, it doesn't. So I then went on to and I want to deal with this because there was one accusation that I did take very seriously, and I wanted to know more about it. It was hearsay, but like it was, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
okay, so and we'll deal with that one next because I think it's a fairly serious one. So there was several sources who spoke to Fisher around the time were willing to talk to a Warner's investigator. Among them was writer Nadia Tucker, who tweeted February 24th, "I haven't spoken to Jeff Johns since the day on Krypton when he tried to tell me what is and is not a black thing." Tucker tells THR that Johns objected when a black female character's hairstyle was changed in scenes that took place on different days. "I said, black women, we tend to change our hair frequently. It's not weird, it's a black thing." And he said, "No, it's not." Okay. So what do you make? I'll let you go first with this.
I mean, if it's different days and stuff, I'm like, and you clearly delineate that as different days, I see no problem with changing hairstyles. It'd be one thing if it's like, if it's like she's in the kitchen having a sandwich, and then like 5 minutes later she's in the other room and her hair is completely different. That'd be another thing. But I assume they were clearly delaying that it's different days. So she has a point where it's like, okay, why would you go against this? And why are you telling someone? He could have phrased it better by saying, well, it could be the audience will see this as like is like out of continuity or something like that, instead of saying, no, it's not a black thing, because it sounds obnoxious.
It sounds obnoxious, and it sounds like, do you ever have those days at work when you're just like, you've got somebody who's like who's under you, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, you just can't be bothered to explain the whole thing, so you just use a shorthand with them.
Yeah.
Right? Like it sounds like he used the shorthand at the wrong time. And that she never challenged him on it, because she was like, "Oh, I'm never going to talk to you again," rather than actually go up to him and say, "Hey man, I understand, like you're in the heat of producing this new show that you're passionate about, and you've got a lot of balls that you're juggling, but what you said about the thing could be really taken as offensive." Without that conversation and without his response to that conversation, I don't see that as anything other than, you're in the heat of the moment. Imagine you're producing a brand new show, season 1. You're passionate about this show, and you're trying to like juggle all of these different kind of things. And then there's somebody saying like, you see her haircut here and you see the haircut there, and you're like, no, I want a continuity with this character. Like, no, I want her to have the same haircut. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so any excuses I don't want to hear. I'm sure he didn't. I'm not saying I'm sure he didn't mean it in that, but we can't in a racist way. But we can't know, because she didn't have a follow-up conversation. If she had the follow-up conversation, then we could say no. If he said, and he continued to go along the lines of, nah, it's not what black people do. Like he knows better or something like that. Then we could reasonably, say this. But at that time, it just looks like he was trying to be blunt and trying to be like, no, this is how I want it. And guess what? He's the producer. He's the whatever, and he gets to say how he wants it.
Yeah, he's the superior in that sense.
So again, I just don't. To me, that's how I looked at that. That's nothing. And let's say he did do it. What do you want? What do you want from that? Like, let's cancel him. Let's get rid of, like, what do you want from this? So there was another accusation.
And I agree with you on that.
Yeah. And I'll do two last ones, one with John Berg, one with him. So there was apparently a conversation, and I really want to find this, but like I didn't get to find it on time, where he Ooh.
Hmm?
Oh, I do have it actually.
Okay.
Well, not that, but I had the Quasimodo thing. This is interesting because all right, so this is one thing. Sorry, Fisher told Johns it might be one thing for a non-black person to write a comic, write a character for a comic, but it was another for a black actor to portray that character on screen. It was like he was assuming how black people would respond rather than taking the advice from the only black person, as far as I know, with any kind of creative impact on the project. That was what he was talking about with the Quasimodo. That was what he said.
Okay.
And it's like, but no, Ray Fisher, you don't get to say what all black people would think of something either. You know, you can have your perspective as a black person, but you don't assume the superposition of all black people. You know, that we're going to get offended if you play him like Quasimodo. Is that what you're saying? That you know, you're telling him, hey, you know, brothers, a brother would know that if you play Cyborg as Quasimodo, like, we're going to get offended. Who told you that? Did you take a consensus, or where do you get this information from that all black people will be offended? So that was what I kind of took from that. But anyway, the other thing, and I want you to speak more because I've been speaking too much.
It's all good.
The other thing was, and I'm going to ask you openly. So he said at one point, apparently, this is allegedly, that he doesn't want an angry black man at the center of his movie. This is the most serious thing that was said against Jeff Johns.
Yeah,
an angry one.
That's the one thing where I'm like, yeah, he had something. He might have something there because the very fact that he added the race part and says, "I don't want an angry black guy at the center of this movie." Yeah, that's bad.
Right. Okay.
That is actually bad. He should have really led with that one.
That's really the. Ooh, sorry, I'm being a bit too loud. That's really the only one I think that he could, out of everything he said, that's the only one that I think has any substance whatsoever. If I can possibly find the part, I'll try, but you can speak on it while I'm trying to.
Yeah, because you see, I understand what he's saying because like I get it, because remember, and Zack was very vocal that Cyborg was the heart of the movie, and but still, just the way he phrased it, I don't want an angry black man at the center of my movie. Yeah, that is bad. That is really, really bad. It's like yeah. That's all I can say about that, because because that's the one part. If he had just come out in terms of the Jeff Johns stuff and just said he said this, yeah, totally fine. By totally fine, I mean, yeah, okay, cool. That's an actual thing that's an actual thing that actually happened to you that's verifiable and that you can bring up.
Well, it wasn't verifiable, but I'll get to the bit if I can find it. If you could talk just a moment longer.
It's all good. That's all good. What I meant by verifiable is that's one that's very that's the strongest argument for racism coming from Jeff Johns. So it's like, yeah, if you had said, okay, so Jeff Johns is a racist because he said he doesn't want an angry black man at the center of his movie. Okay, and done that and left at that. Cool. Okay. Not cool, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's like, yes, 100%. That's the racist one.
Yeah, 100%. I can't find this quote. Here we go.
Okay.
Angry black man conversation alleged. It wasn't the part. Okay. All right. It made reference to it, but it wasn't the actual part. This article is so long.
Yeah, it is. But
anyway, all right. So I want to, because I want to say this exactly, but I know what happened. Okay, so not I know what happened as in I was there, but I know what it said in the article. So it says that he said in a meeting that he doesn't like that. It was reported to him by two non-black people, by the way. It was reported to Ray Fisher after he had found out, after the Zack Snyder's Justice League
was authorized to come out.
Was authorized to come out. He found out this information about Jeff Johns, right? And that's why he hadn't reported it from the beginning, right?
Okay.
So he said he found out like 2 months before or something, right? And he said that that two people had reported that to him, and that was the last straw for him with Jeff Johns. When he heard about that, that was his last straw. And so he then went on and told everyone about, or told the people who were doing the article about this allegation. Jeff Johns' response was that actually he didn't say that, and what was happening. And by the way, he the way Ray Fisher had said it was that John Berg, Jeff Johns, and Walter Amada were part of racist conversations, not a racist conversation, racist conversations between each other, that he'd heard about these racist conversations that they were having. Jeff Johns, John Berg, and maybe it wasn't Walter Amada, maybe it was Toby Emmerich. I think.
It might have been Toby Emmerich, because I think he was another one that he was dropping accusations.
So it was those three, right? And then he goes on to tell the story, as I said, about the Jeff Johns saying he doesn't want an angry black man at the center of his movie. Well, that's the only allegation he made. So John Berg and Toby Emmerich didn't say anything, according to him, according to the hearsay that he had from other people in the room. So why were they racist? Why wasn't it just Jeff Johns? Right? That's the first thing I noticed. I was like, so did they follow up with any racist statements that you know of? Or did they just hear it, and just in virtue of them hearing it, they're also guilty? And then, regarding the actual allegation itself, Jeff Johns responded that, no, I didn't say that. What I said was a general discussion they were having. Once Warner Brothers executives had told them that they want the film to be more happy. So Kevin Sugihara from the top said, we want Justice League to be a more happy affair. And they had general conversations, which they always have, about representation, about whether, having an angry black man as a stereotype will be kind of considered kind of offensive by any communities. And they had that general conversation.
Okay.
And also about let's make Cyborg more upbeat, because we want the whole thing to be more upbeat. So again, Ray Fisher hears an accusation, doesn't investigate it, takes it all the way to the top, and tries to cancel a person, even though he wasn't there to hear it, wasn't there to, and exaggerates it as well by saying it's racist conversations and that two other people were involved. To this date, has never said anything that John Berg has done that was racist, never said anything that Toby Emmerich has done that was racist, yet he adds them to the fold. The only person he said anything that, as you pointed out, could be seriously racist is Jeff Johns.
Yeah.
And Jeff Johns had an answer for that. I'm not saying that he's telling the truth. He could have just actually been just being a racist scumbag in that meeting, going, I don't want a racist black man in the meeting. But no investigation, no follow-up by Ray Fisher to ensure what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree with you on that. Yeah, 100%. He should have followed it up more to actually investigate as to how exactly were these two involved, because just saying racist conversations, okay, that's way too general. You have to give me more on that. That's that was always my feelings on the allegations as a whole. They were very, very, very general. Okay, they did these things. Okay, can you be a little more specific?
right.
And that's where I think his biggest issue was, because if he had been very specific, saying, okay, so Jeff Johns said he doesn't want an angry black man in the middle of the movie, blah 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 blah, and then just release that. Okay, cool. Those are solid allegations that can be considered racist that you can run with. But instead, he was like, this happened, this person tangentially told me that this happened. It's too much like this guy told told this person who told this person who told this person who told me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'll say this last part. And I'm kind of done with this. I mean, unless you have like some, whatever that you want to come back to.
So yeah, so for those of you that made this far in the episode, and now that we're pretty much done with the Ray Fisher, we will be transitioning to the to talk about a more positive topic on our favorite on the DC Trinity. So you want to go ahead and do that?
There was one
okay.
last thing I was gonna say. It was this last accusation he made of him, and I had it, and now I don't have it. I underlined it even.
I'm gonna try and look it up too.
It was like the last conversation they had where Ray Fisher was talking about like how he knew that he knew we weren't friends or something like this.
Let me see here.
I have the article up here.
Pressed by Fisher. I'm going to find to see what the studio made 100% crystal clear that everyone at Warner Bros. Communication. Hard to say who at the studio approved the statement, but it said it's your sphere is what you read. Let me see. When we at the top, so I'll call him Fisher. Oh, is this Chrissy Halberger, head of communications at Warner Media and the company's top inclusion officer, said on a call with Fisher that the studio's statement that Fisher had refused to cooperate with the investigation had been based on third-hand information. The studio's communications department had been responding emotionally to Fisher's public allegations against Hamada, she said, adding, I think they believed that that what they were saying was true. So let me see what else in October. Top one of the executives spoke with his team. Sure. Then got a call from Berg who said was sorry that the actor had an appalling experience on Justice League and he hadn't been able to help, acknowledging that a bunch of straight white men have been running things. He said he hoped the studio would improve on that in the future. Berg said he had spoken to the investigator at length and truthfully. I let him know that that it did mean a lot. Fisher says, I'm not beyond forgiveness when it comes to this kind of stuff. It was a very big thing for him to do. No one else in the process has reached out at all. Okay. And continue to tweet that Walter Hamada had thrown Wiedenberg under the bus while covering for Johns. Unfortunately, it's not until I started talking about people specifically that the needle started to move, he said. If they were going to continue to cover things up, I wasn't going to let that happen. So he was saying that the way Hamada gets involved is that Hamada had tried to protect Jeff Johns. He, in other words, said, "Okay, I'll give you Berg and Whedon to essentially quiet you, but I'm going to protect Jeff Johns."
Yeah, no, I heard about that, but like, I guess because he didn't tell him what the accusations were, it's hard to go against Jeff Johns on the basis of some of these accusations that Fisher was making. But he just wanted he wanted scorched earth. That was the thing. Anybody who was in the way, it seems, of Zack Snyder, because I honestly think Ray's a smart guy. So to me, the idea that he really believes that these things are super fucking offensive is laughable. I don't think a smart individual like him really thinks these, he's emotional, and he wants to destroy, in my opinion, anybody who was in the way of Zack Snyder. Now, I don't know if that was Zack Snyder orchestrating that or not, but that is my interpretation of these events. He may have felt like, this guy was pissed me off, and I think like maybe this is a little bit racist. But I know as a Black person, we've got a lot, we deal with a lot of racism, like in our life, and we build up a big resilience to little kind of things, right? Like that come at us, and this stuff doesn't warrant anything. It doesn't warrant anything. Most of it. I mean, the one thing, as you said, that warrants anything is the angry Black man at the center of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've gone over like why you'd need a little bit more evidence, a little bit more of an investigation into that. And if that's true, then that's a big problem that he said that. What should happen to him because of that? You'd need to find out why he said that. Does he have any animus towards Black people? Which I suspect he doesn't, since he had a Black wife. What was his reasoning? Maybe some sensitivity training, if it was like on the lower spectrum of stuff. Or maybe he does need to, take some time off of suspension if it was on the higher spectrum of like why he said that. Right?
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
But all this, like he can never show his face anywhere again. I don't know. It's not exactly like he pulled what's that guy from the from Seinfeld? Do you know what I mean? He didn't exactly pull one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know. There was more. Maybe I'll talk about it on another program, because I can't, like, this article is just a massive. So many. It goes from Johns to Berg to everyone else, and I can't find. I was just going to talk about that last discussion he had with Jeff Johns, where he said that Jeff Johns had threatened him, which I didn't see what he said.
His career.
He didn't say anything. Even from the reason I wanted to bring this up is that even from Ray Fisher's own account of the story, it doesn't sound like a threat. From Ray Fisher's own, the way he describes what happened doesn't even sound like a threat. And that's why I'm like, he basically told him, like, hey, it's not cool to go to send your agent to talk to the head of the studio when you are having, problems with the kind of production, right, of a film or something like that. There's a way of going up, and I don't, I see you as a friend, and I don't want you to get a bad reputation in this, in Hollywood. It's like, yeah, everything John said would actually be true.
Exactly.
So I don't know. That was the last thing I wanted to do, but I know about it, and that's it. So, on to more positive pastures.
All right. So, those of you that know me know I've said it every single episode on this. My 3 favorite superheroes are Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Of all time, it's always been those ones. I'm glad they all have movies now, and I think the reason why I like the Trinity themselves as a group is because they all 3 of them, I think at least represent sort of parts of being a superhero. Superman's more of the hope, Batman's more of the justice, and Wonder Woman's more of the truth/love. In other words, we do this for the love of people. Batman's like, okay, criminals deserve to be punished, bad guys deserve to be stopped, and Superman's like, we can always be better.
That's a really good way of putting it. Thank you. I find it, Wonder Woman's a bit of a mess. We should talk about Wonder Woman in a way.
Oh, yes.
Wonder Woman is a bit of a mess, but like the ideal Wonder Woman for me is one of the greatest superhero stories ever. Like and one of the more intellectual ones as well.
Yeah.
It's not just some dumb kind of like whatever. There's a lot to the character and what she represents, and when it's done well, how it makes you feel, right? Like the Wonder Woman movie, right? To a large extent, that was done right. There's elements I didn't like. I like Wonder Woman's old origin rather than the Zeus origin.
Really?
Yeah, I much prefer that. I think the Zeus origin and her running away from the island, I don't like that. I like the trial. She has the trial, she unmasks, and her mother realizes it's her, and I think that should be part. It's like, there's certain things you don't want to take out. Bruce Wayne's parents getting shot in the alley.
Yeah, you kind of have to keep that.
You don't take up the trial. That's Wonder Woman's moment from becoming a girl to Wonder Woman. Like she takes off but that's fine. Whatever. I think the movie got the spirit of the character right. But she doesn't have a city, which I think she should have a city. Like I like the Gateway City. That there's only one thing I like about there's this guy who did it, John Byrne.
Yeah, John Byrne, yeah.
Yeah, only one thing I like about his Wonder Woman run, and that was that he gave her a city, which was Gateway City.
Yes, right? It's in that trade right there.
Yeah, and now they kind of tangentially use Gateway City for Wonder Girl City, which is so stupid, but like I think it should be brought back as Wonder Woman City, because I like the gateway element of it, because it's like, actually this is her gateway into understanding humanity.
Yeah.
Like so there are elements where I think it's just a mess, but I also think that there's a streamlined story of Wonder Woman, mainly found between 3 runs. That is Greg Rucka, Gail Simone, and what's his name from there? He did Gods and Monsters. Gods and oh, that's another one. Alex Ross. I should add.
Oh yeah, baby.
And what is his name? He recently died. Comic book creator, is amazing. He did a lot of Teen Titans.
Oh, George Perez,
right? Exactly.
Yes, all 3 of those are my favorite runs for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so it's like between that, if you condense those 3 or / Alex Ross, version of Wonder Woman, I think you have like she's one of the greatest. She's just one of, and I love the way she fits in, as you said, with Superman and Batman, right? Because Batman's the darkness, Superman's the light. She's kind of the light as well, but she's also this kind of like this warrior after peace. You know what I
She's
mean?
kind
So
of in the middle,
like
in other words.
She's kind of in the middle there. She's kind of in the center there. And you couldn't think of three characters that fit together so well, like as a jigsaw puzzle. When, as I said, if you get the ideal Wonder Woman, Batman and Superman are pretty much, they've got the ideal versions of themselves already. You get that ideal Wonder Woman with Superman and Batman, and you've just got
gold.
You've got three characters that are just perfectly reflect each other's weaknesses and strengths and goals and ambitions, and that's what fascinates me about them, because they were all created by different people. It wasn't a plan.
And somehow they just fit together so well.
Right. It wasn't ever planned by DC to do this. Like to have like this Trinity. It just happened organically, and they just work. It's like the three biggest selling DC characters from the 40s or whatever just happen to mystically kind of fit together in this jigsaw puzzle. So I don't know what I was going to talk about. I suppose we should talk about why, like the why of it. Like, why do they fit together so well, right?
Okay.
And I think, to me, it's like you've got this alien who's a whose secret identity is a journalist.
Yeah.
You've got this Avenger of the Night whose secret identity is a billionaire playboy. And in my preferred version of Wonder Woman, she has no secret identity. She's Princess of Themyscira, and she is an ambassador, who's always Wonder Woman, but she's also her, if you want to say her civilian guise is as the ambassador, Princess Diana of Themyscira. And they have these villains that are their exact, not because a lot of people have villains where it's like the Flash or Green Lantern or something like that, where
it's like pretty much the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's just an inversion of them. And funnily enough, in Green Lantern and the Flash, it's one of the better versions of that, because Sinestro and Reverse Flash are awesome. But at the same time, it's just like, oh god, you're just gonna have this person, like like Iron Man but stronger with Iron Longer, or Doctor Strange, but like all the MCU villains basically. Right?
Yeah, all the MCU, exactly. It's one of the reasons why I can't stand the MCU.
It's so boring. I find it so utterly vapid and boring. Whereas Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman have these great, like, everyone talks about Batman's rogues gallery, but like the villains that Batman has are amazing, and they all are these dark reflections of him. But no one speaks about how Superman and Wonder Woman have these great dark reflections of them. I mean, you have for Superman, you have like Brainiac and Lex Luthor, right? I'd say like those are my favorite ones of his. For Batman, you have Joker, Riddler, Scarecrow. Those are three guys especially that I love to see him take on, because they don't take him on just physically, they take him on philosophically and intellectually. The same with Brainiac and Superman, and Lex Luthor and Superman. And then with Wonder Woman, you have Ares. It's the perfect thing. She's the ambassador of peace.
She's the god of peace, if you will.
Yeah. She's come as her mission to bring peace to the world. Who should we have as a villain? Ares, the god of war, and it's perfect. And the one thing I really annoys me about that Wonder Woman movie is that they didn't make Ares a super sick villain, because he should have been a great villain in that movie. He was all right. I think people go on like he was worse than he actually was. I think he was it fit in with the story. Put it that way. To me,
Let me put it this way: he was a badass because he knocked out Darkseid. Okay,
exactly.
let's not forget about that one.
Yeah, exactly. So those things as well. That's what I really appreciate about like this group of people and their supporting cast. Everything is built into this kind of world where they all just reflect each other, and I just think that's, to me, and they're all three badasses in their own way.
Of course, yes.
And I love the fact that like Wonder Woman is the only one who will kill, but only if she has to.
Arguably, Batman kills people, depending on if he means to or if it's like accidental. Because punching people's face in the pavement, yeah, they're dead. Hitting with the Batmobile, yeah, they're gonna be dead.
But technically, like in the comics, they say he has a no-kill policy. But like, whatever.
You can argue about that one.
You can argue about that all day. But like, so yeah, I mean, do you want to bring up some of your favorite runs and we can discuss that?
In terms of my favorite, okay, so I'm gonna take this individually. My favorite Superman story has to be All-Star, because I think All-Star Superman completely 100% like nails down this is who Superman is. Case in point, this happens in the middle of the storyline. He's dealing with like world destroying things, but then he hears through his super hearing this girl's about to commit suicide because she can't get through to her therapist or something like that. He stops everything, goes and saves her, and goes, "You're so much stronger than you could possibly think you are." And that 100, because whenever anyone tells me that Superman's a boring character, I always bring up that one panel, because what that shows is Superman, he's not only a man, he's an ideal. He's the ideal that you can, the invulnerability thing. Yeah, you can endure anything if you hope hard enough. In other words, that's what I'm trying to say. If you don't give up, in other words. Same thing with Batman, because with Batman, it's like, yeah, you can take a traumatic event and turn it into, I hesitate to say kind of a strength, but you can use that to better your life. With Wonder Woman, it's like you can, it's like there's power in truth, hence which is the lasso of truth. But going back to what I was talking about earlier, my favorite like run for Superman, what I liked was the new 52 Superman run, and that seemed to be heavily what Zack was adapting from Man of Steel. And what I liked about that is that you saw Superman make mistakes and learn how to be the superhero that we know, because too often or not, we start up a Superman story and he's right at the point where he knows how to do all of his powers, he knows how to fight people and all that stuff. And yeah, there's a time and a place for that, and I like that. But I also liked seeing him have to learn and get to that point. And
I mean, I think it was Earth One that that was majorly adapted, and then John Berg's Man of Steel as well. But yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I liked one thing that you said about Superman, and this is why Superman ultimately trumps both Wonder Woman and Batman for me, just by a little bit.
Yeah, me too.
Because I studied philosophy, and this is one thing I love about the Trinity. They all are philosophically, in terms of their ethical standpoint. And I really wish somebody did a study on this who's smarter than me. They're all philosophically come from different schools of ethics. So Superman actually comes from the Kantian deontological school of ethics, which says that that each human being is an end in themselves, right? So that you can never use a human being as a means to an end. So that's why Superman, for instance, would never say, let a little girl suffer so that 1,000 people could live, right? Like if there was a choice between the little girl suffers and 1,000 people die, he'd always try and find a way to save both, right? He wouldn't be like, this girl can be used as a means to an end, right? And that's his ultimate kind of mantra. Like, the girl who's committing suicide isn't as important as a galaxy being destroyed, right? Like no human being's life or anything. And there's problems in that ethical theory, and there's problems that Batman, specifically points out in that ethical theory. And Batman acts ultimately in the same kind of way. Like he ultimately becomes a Kantian in the end, but he always positions himself as a utilitarian, right? He positions himself as and when I say utilitarian, I'm just so that everybody who's listening, it's that the greatest happiness for the greatest number, right, is what's important. Not so he can make a moral calculation, right, to say that if I can do a bad thing if the outcome will be good, it will be better for the majority of people. So he can torture a criminal, right? Even though that's completely ethically wrong to torture a criminal, or say for instance he can take all of the mobile
phones and turn them into a sonar,
into a sonar for so that so he can do an immoral thing in order to get an outcome that would be for the greater benefit of people. And that's what the utilitarian thinks, that the actions are can be morally evaluated by their outcome rather than the intention. Whereas the deontologist, the Kantian, would say that an action is always the intention is the most important thing. If you intend to do good, if you intend to do bad and good things happen, it's still an immoral action. That's the kind of difference. And Wonder Woman, funnily enough, given her Greek roots, comes from a kind of Aristotelian, it's called virtue ethics, where an action is about the good life, right? Like if your action is something that is, how would you put it? It's like their prescription on what praxis, what they call praxis, on what action should be, is intended towards the betterment of life in general, like the good life. So they take balance as the main thing. Don't be too this, otherwise it like the balanced existence, right? Like, so for instance, if you're too generous, right, you lose all your money. So you can't do as much good, right, with like giving to like underprivileged children, or given to whatever, right? So you have to be balanced in your approach to the world, because if you go off the scales, just try to be too good, and too much of your intention does everything, then you're ending up doing a worse thing because you as a good person could do so much more if you balance things out a little bit more. And that's where I think Wonder Woman is like, kind of represents that balance between these two different species of kind of ethics, where she's like, yeah, of course, your intention is the most important thing, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, if it really comes down to it, and you have to do just this one immoral thing because you're going to save a number of different lives, that depending on what that immoral thing is, you might have to do it. You might have to break what's his name's neck, Maxwell Lord's neck, right? You might have to do that and suffer the consequences, because otherwise, right? So that's one of the things that like I've always fascinated me, because having studied philosophy, I see, and there's more parallels between these different types of ethics in the three characters, but I just tried to break it down in kind of general to give you a gist of.
Yeah,
do you agree, or are you?
I agree.
Or you're just trying to think about it. I don't know.
Both, but a good actually point that you actually reminded me of is that there's this fantastic scene in like the Justice League animated cartoon where they think Superman died, and they have this big memorial for him. They have a statue and everything, and Batman is not convinced that Superman is dead because he's Batman.
Yeah, it's pure logic, pure reason. Yeah.
He shows up to the statue and he goes, "Listen, man, I don't think you're dead, but if you are, I just want to say that you taught me that justice does not always have to be in the darkness." And that's the thing about Superman, his effect in the DC universe. All the other heroes take their cues from him. Ultimately, they're either inspired or they're like, oh, you could say that Batman is like the leader of the Justice League. No, it's really Superman in terms of how they conduct themselves as heroes, because everyone looks up to him as a role model.
I think, yeah, Superman, Wonder Woman. I like to see the Trinity equally respected as the leaders,
of
but
course.
ultimately, yeah, it comes down to Superman. Superman's the ideal. He's the hope, and I think that Wonder Woman should be there, but due to kind of a little bit of, let's quite face it, sexism in how she's been depicted, it's been very inconsistent. But like when you saw, like, she's a leader. Do you know what I mean? When you see Wonder Woman the movie and Patty Jenkins is hitting on all cylinders there. When she
charges no man's land and everyone takes their cues from her, like, okay, let's go, guys.
Yeah, and when you see Justice League, even Zack Snyder's Justice League, you can't help. She's a leader. They try and like hold her back a little bit, and it's still, she shines as like, no, this is the person you follow into battle, and you either die at her side or you what do you call it? Succeed with her, if you want to say it like that.
And actually, I wanted to bring up another fantastic run that actually addresses all the Trinity. Is actually, so in the New 52, they had Superman and Wonder Woman as a couple, and they gave them their own comic book series. And in this comic book series, Charles Soule was the writer, and he had this great interaction between Superman and Batman. So Superman is like, Batman goes to Clark, and he goes, "Hey, listen, man, this is why I always like working with you. This is why I've always preferred to work closer with you. Because yes, you have these godlike powers, and you could possibly burn the world down, anything. But because you were raised by human beings, you will always see mankind as your home team. You will ultimately, even though you're an alien, you're really a human at this point. That's why I trust you, because ultimately, yeah, you had otherworldly origins, but you're human ultimately."
And you hit upon something that is, again, something that I love about the Trinity and how they play off each other, because Clark Kent is the most human. He comes from the soil of the earth, farmers, raised by them, raised to have that kind of humble morality of Midwest, American kind of society. So he is, whereas Wonder Woman is like a princess from a utopian island.
And Batman's a rich playboy.
She doesn't come here, like, she's more alien, even though she's from Earth, than Clark Kent, right? Like, so she's come from a completely different kind of society. And then, like, yeah, Batman's one of the 1%ers, so he's completely, in some sense, divorced from, the general kind of humanity. So that is also what makes kind of Superman the leader between them as well. But yeah, no, I love that they have that kind of contrast where, you've got the alien who's the most human, And then you've got the two side characters who, you know, have different types of morality because they come from Batman from the darkness of like Gotham, you know, where his parents were slaughtered in front of him, and Wonder Woman from this society that was utopian and taught her like everything, you know, all people are equal, and, you know, women can do anything they want, and, you know, there's no difference between races, and, you know, sexism and racism are unthinkable on you know, Themyscira, right? And so she comes here and she's looking around and like, what the hell is this? Right?
Plus, that going on to what we were talking about Superman, what does it say about someone? He has the powers of a god, but still chooses to serve mankind.
Yeah.
He chooses to serve those who would be his underlings. And you see it like when Supergirl first showed up post-crisis, she even asked, you know, Cal, you could rule the place with all these powers. He goes, but that's not what we're supposed to do. It's kind of like going off of that Spider-Man thing, with great power comes great responsibility, sort of ideal.
So I wanted to mention a couple of my favorite comics by Wonder Woman and Superman and Batman. So recently they had a comic called Dead Earth, Wonder Woman Dead Earth.
Yeah, it was badass.
That is it's so badass that I hope like one day they do a movie, either a TV movie of it or you know, because it got the essence of Wonder Woman, but it was quite a dark story as well. And she beats the crap out of Superman, and I fucking I loved it, and then uses his skull
and like spinal cord as a whip. I'm like, oh,
she's awesome in that, and yet it still stays very, very true to the character, adds a little bit more to the mythology, and that's what I love about them as well, you know, like, because you can take their stories and do so much. You can make super dark stuff with it, you can make children's stuff with it, you can make you know, big action movies with it, you can make more cerebral, you know, like the Joker or something like that with their stories, or Lex Luthor, Man of Steel. I don't know if you've read that, which is one of my favorite Superman. Oh, dude, Lex Luthor, Man of Steel is awesome juice, dude. It's
look it up.
Such a good story of Lex Luthor. It's Lex Luthor full at his full intellectual beast mode best. So you've got stories like that. So that's one of my favorite Superman stories, by the way. I love the Earth One series as well.
Oh yes.
And I've got to tell you, man, there's two that I really like. That I based I wrote a Superman script. That's how much I love him. And I based a lot of my stories off Superman. It's this one where Superman is actually like, it's like a story where Clark Kent is actually somebody who was born just like a normal guy in Kansas, and his parents named him after Superman. But then he finds out later.
That's a story?
Yeah, he finds out later that he actually has Superman's powers.
Oh, wow.
It's such a good comic. I'll find out now. And then there was this recent one, Superman American Alien, dude.
I've heard about that one.
It's so good. Superman American Alien as well. Like, it's got 4 stories. One of them is a little bit weak, but then 3 of them are really, really excellent. Like, just a modern take on Superman, like where you stay true to the essence of the character, but like you really kind of modernize and put him in a modern kind of world context, and it just makes sense. So I'm gonna try and find this Superman. Yeah, there's some. You can carry on while I find this one, but yeah, those Superman comics, like, they just inspire me. I should also mention the Jeff Johns run on Superman and Superman Birthright.
I love speaking of Jeff Johns running Superman, when he did Superman Secret Origin, And one of my favorite one of my favorite parts of that story, it starts off, Clark arrives in Metropolis, he bumps into an old woman, and she goes, watch it, watch where you're going. End of the storyline. After Superman's established, a weary traveler comes into Metropolis. He's very impressed by the big city. He knocks into that same old lady. She goes, you were looking up in the sky, weren't you? And then he goes, yeah. And he goes, don't worry, you'll fit in here just great. We always look up in the sky because we that way we always know he's watching over us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I love that. I
love
love that.
those.
And I love where his first meeting with Lois Lane, he catches the helicopter kind of like in the movie. And then he just goes, hi.
Yeah,
like very awkwardly, and he's like, when Jimmy's taking his picture, Superman's like, very awkward and everything. He's like, I don't know what to do.
And the one I was talking about was Superman's Secret Identity. It's really great story. By the way, it's like, yeah, like the guy finds out he has Superman's powers, even though he was just named after Clark Kent. But it's fantastic. Anyway, but yeah, man, like you're right. Like the Jeff Johns run, I love the stuff that he did with Brainiac, because Brainiac has always been my favorite Superman villain. I love Lex Luthor, but I think Lex Luthor's a bit of a hard sell sometimes because it's just like, how does a human take on Superman?
That's true.
But the best Lex Luthor stories show that he's more than capable, of the Man of Steel.
He's capable of devastation, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I love him in Red Sun, for instance.
Yes, Red Sun. How have we not talked about Red Sun? Oh.
Yeah. But I love Brainiac in Red Sun as well. Brainiac is just so killer in Red Sun. Jeff Johns definitely, and speaking of Batman, I mean, Batman, it goes without saying, Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, yes.
Was it Batman Year One, whatever? Love those comics.
Yeah, Dark Knight Earth. Oh yeah. It's like you're speaking my language, dude. Because Dark Knight Returns is like, first off, it's legit the adaptation. It's legit the inspiration for BVS very heavily, and I like that idea of essentially a broken Batman who's like is like, I'm done with this. The city goes to hell. Then he decides, okay, you know what? Looks like I gotta come back. And then when he comes back, everyone's like, oh no, the Batman's back. And even the cops are like, you're in for a show tonight.
Yeah, exactly. He's just cool. Batman is the Trinity member he's just cool. Like everything he does is awesome. He's living his best life in Gotham, just being awesome 24/7.
Even when he's like an old dude in the beginning of Dark Knight Returns, he's racing a Formula One car.
Right. It's like just the way he comes in, he takes out all of those people. Like when he's trying to get to the Joker, he's like killing all the people in the audience. And man, I just love all those, Batman calling the bats and it's back up, like
back up.
In year one, like, and Batman Begins,
Or in BVS, that badass scene where he's saving Superman's mom in the warehouse. He comes in through the floor and just completely lays. It's essentially the Arkham games. He completely lays waste to all these dudes with guns.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, those are like, I can't. I was saying.
But I will say, my favorite Trinity moment in movies is when they first show up in BVS and they're all finally there in suit. They're all facing Doomsday, and you get that shot of like Wonder Woman and Superman and Batman on their sides, and it's like zooming in on them, and then you're playing the Wonder Woman theme, and then it's like, it's the Trinity. My one problem with that, I think it would have been a little more satisfying had they not told us that Wonder Woman was in this movie. Because you have the scene where she's walking off the plane, and then the flight attendant's like, excuse me, Miss Prince. Then guys like you and me would be like, wait, what? Did she just say Prince? And then she comes down with the music. it would have been a little more satisfying if we didn't know that Wonder Woman was in this movie.
They should have said Gal Gadot's playing Catwoman.
And then she comes up as Wonder Woman anyway.
Yeah, I really think that would have been so much better, because everyone was going with that she was Catwoman. I would have just gone like, I would have been like, oh, you know, let's just not deny that and put her in as like Catwoman.
She shows up as Wonder Woman.
And then she shows up as Wonder Woman. I think it would have blown people's minds.
And the headline is Zack Snyder made Catwoman Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that's true. They probably would have found a negative spin on it, wouldn't they?
But
it
it's
would have
like
been like,
really...
oh, they tried to surprise, you know, DC fans by the first appearance of Wonder Woman in movies. It would be like, oh, look.
But I will say there was this great scene when the three of them are at like the event for like the Metropolis Library, and Lex Luthor is giving a speech on the Greek gods. You can see Wonder Woman's like not impressed. She's like,
yeah, I love Lex Luthor in that movie. I don't like the casting. I don't like the casting very much, but I love, like, it's not that I even don't like the casting. It's like I understand why people don't like the casting. I don't mind the casting, but I just love the dialogue by this guy.
Yeah.
I love the approach to Lex Luthor that they took. My only problem with it is I think he should have been a self-made billionaire. I didn't like that it was like, oh, my daddy made this money and blah, blah, blah. It made him too much like Bruce Wayne. Whereas if it was him who made his own money, like, because he's like a modern kind of Silicon Valley kind of billionaire, I think that would have played like a genius. That would have played much better into, you know, making us respect him as a character and as a malevolent force. You know, I think that was a real mistake that they made in not having Lex Luthor be that, because then he would have had a genuine gripe against Bruce Wayne as well. Look at this fucking guy who earned all his money from his family, you know, like, I'm the real guy, you know.
That's true.
I'm a genius, made it by myself, you know.
But remember, he was only targeting Batman because he wanted Superman to kill Batman and thus discredit Superman.
Right, no, true.
So it wasn't necessarily that he had a vendetta against Bruce Wayne. It was just he was using Bruce Wayne as a means to an end to take out Superman.
I understand that. I just mean it would have been a nice other wrinkle. But look, not to criticize, because I actually do like it, but I love that first meeting between Batman and Wonder Woman. I think Gal Gadot was excellent. Exquisite in that movie.
That scene sold it. I was a little hesitant at first because I'm like, the Fast and the Furious girl, really? Then when I see that one scene, that one interaction, I was like, I'm on board. I got it. Let's do this.
And I loved it because I thought I saw that scene and I was like, oh God, you know, in the trailers, and I was like, oh God, are they gonna make Wonder Woman like Catwoman, like some sassy, you know, like sex kind of whatever? And I was like, oh God. But no, she was pure, elegant grace, royalty. You know, she was like, you've never met a woman like me.
That's my favorite line in that movie.
She's just like,
and the way she smiles first, she's like,
you know, and then she goes, boys never know how to share and all of that kind of stuff. I was just like, so that's good. Wonder Woman. That's not like them trying to make Wonder Woman like some.
Because she can be sassy. She can 100% be sassy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that scene.
And then when she just comes down with the full armor, and then you get her theme, which like it's like a metal guitar, and I'm like, oh, this is dope.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many. The problems I have with BVS are so much less than the things I like about it. But it's just with that film, I understand people's problem with it a little bit. But with Zack Snyder's Justice League, I don't understand. I think people just have a bias. They have a bias towards Zack Snyder, and they'll never like anything that he does.
My favorite thing that was that was in the Snyder cut that wasn't in the Whedon cut is when those guys are shooting at her, and then she super speed deflects the bullets like this, and I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah, I was like, because that's her thing. That's what she does, and you never saw that. You always saw her using the shield instead. But like this time, she was like,
yeah, she was like doing this.
and
So
then
I was like, yes, that was just so great.
Yeah, yeah. And I really wish people hadn't have seen the Josh Whedon version first, because everyone's always like, I always see people online saying, you know, one day when I show my children the Justice League, I'm going to show them the Whedon version first, and I'm like, why would you do that?
Don't show them the crap version.
Just show them that, because it ruins parts of not ruins, spoils. I mean, spoils parts of the Zack Snyder version, which was so fucking good. You know, so. Like people say like Aquaman didn't do anything in the Zack Snyder version, and I'm like, no, he did a lot. It's just that you'd already seen it and you were expecting more.
Yeah.
But actually, if you see what he does when he's like windsurfing on the parademons, beating the shit of them, I liked Aquaman. I mean, he was my least favorite out of all.
He also had more dialogue too. It's like that one scene, because they basically insinuate that the Atlanteans and Amazons were at war, and then when they're digging up Superman, you find out that they have like a same common saying, so they're not that different. And I'm like,
and I love that hate is useless.
Hate is useless, yes, because that's Wonder Woman again. That's Wonder Woman.
My dream is that of you know, like after Wonder Woman 3, because Wonder Woman 84, as far as I'm concerned, is garbage.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
I want them to do an epic Wonder Woman movie, like epic. And then
I always said that if they were gonna bring Zack, if they could somehow bring Zack back, let him do an Amazons movie, because he could do it kind of like 300.
I don't think so. That's not it, because I think they're too hopeful and whatever. I think he'll go down a route that I think he should stick to the darker characters personally. But like that's just me. But or do the Justice League 2 and 3.
Absolutely, because I definitely want those two.
Yeah, I'd love him to do that. But what was I saying? Like,
you wanted an epic Wonder Woman movie?
No, so I wanted an epic third Wonder Woman movie, and then I want them to finally do the Flash movie where the Atlanteans face.
You mean the actual Flashpoint storyline?
Yeah, where the Atlanteans face the Amazons, and I want Wonder Woman to go, like something like Steve Trevor says something about like what humanity deserves, about like this World War III or something, and she goes, she picks him up, kills him with a lasso, and she says, it's not about what humanity deserve. It's it's not about what we deserve. It's about what I believe, and I believe in hate.
Oh yeah, that would actually work really well. It's a nice little foil to that. That would actually work really well.
I would love that. I would love that. Just like,
because I could see Gal Gadot as an evil Wonder Woman too, so she could easily do that. My favorite, another one of my favorite Wonder Woman lines from Zack Snyder's Justice League is when she's fighting Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf goes, "This one is mine," and then Wonder Woman goes, "I belong to no one."
I know. She's
like, yes,
she's just awesome. 24/7 between BVS, Wonder Woman 1, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Man, she's just been such an awesome character, and I think she should have had more in Justice League. That's my only thing, and I think the Superman Wonder Woman battle should have been a little bit more. I didn't like that.
I'll give you that. I would have wanted more of that, because that would be cool.
Yeah, I didn't like that he just like slapped her around, like took like the lasso's magic, dude. Like his weakness is magic. He shouldn't have just been able to like immediately just, you know, break the grasp of the lasso of truth. But
well, the lasso should have 100% just snapped him out of it.
Yeah. But these are small, you know, nitpicks or whatever kind of thing.
And speaking of badass Batman scenes, when the ship crashes and then it's like all dark, the parademons are like prying open the rear of the dropship. All of a sudden, you just see the headlights and the Batmobile machine guns just open up. I'm like, oh yes,
dude, that's one of the most underrated Batmobile scenes.
Oh yes.
That's in my top 3 Batmobile scenes. So now I have, I still think I have Batman Begins as the rooftops.
Yeah, the tumbler where he's on the rooftops.
Tumbler on the rooftops.
He's not on the street. He's flying on rooftops.
Yeah, that was epic. Then I might have the new Batman.
Yeah, because the Batmobile, when you first see the Batmobile, it's just revving up like it's a wild animal.
Right.
I'm like, yes.
I love that. Yeah. So that one. Okay, maybe it's number 4 because then I have the Joker Batman Tumblr scene.
All right,
the
yeah.
Dark Knight.
That's pretty
and then it's the Justice League. That Justice League one is epic, dude. And when the whole of the Justice League are flying.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to bring that up. And then they top it. You have this epic scene that they, for some reason, cut out of the movie when they were making Justice League, where the League is running. They have this cool splash page like scene where everyone's like slow motion and like doing this. And I'm like, this is so cool. And then, wait, and Aquaman is surfing on the Batmobile.
Yeah, dude, my greatest regret is that I didn't record my reaction to watching Zack Snyder's Justice League the first time.
Mine too, dude.
Like it's and actually the YouTube took down my image because I went straight after and reviewed it, and I just I was mental. It's mental in this.
It's my favorite movie of all time. Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Wow, that's interesting. We'll get back to that, but like I can understand why. In some ways, like the comic book movie, especially. But during watching this movie, this shit that I did, like, first of all, I was sweating profusely, like at certain scenes, and then I'd have to pause a scene and just be like, I cried a couple of times.
Me too. Oh, me too.
And then when Flash did that thing,
oh my gosh!
I jumped up, I smashed my head into my, because I had a bunk bed at the time. I smashed my head into the bunk bed. I was like, he's died. I was like, I was beside myself. I'm sure my neighbors must have thought something.
We're going crazy or something like that. Oh, no, it's just Nerdman. He's watching the Snyder Cut again.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was just like beside, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like when he did that running back in time, because Flash is like, after the Trinity, you've got Flash, Shazam, and Martian Manhunter are like my 3 next guys. Like I love their mythology and like what you can do with it and stuff like that. But in any case, so just that whole it was just the way I was profusely sweating, and I was just like
the 2 times I cried, and actually 3 times in the Snyder Cut I actually shed tears, was one when Superman is walking through the Kryptonian ship and you hear his 2 fathers saying, fly son.
Give me a high five to the screen.
Right there. It's like, fly son, it's time. And I'm like, oh my, and he comes out in the black suit. Jor-El is repeating the same phrases. He said, Man of Steel, they add in some new stuff. He takes off, he assumes the Christ pose. And then the second time was when I had originally thought, okay, Steppenwolf tearing off Cyborg's leg that's a Zack thing. The axe comes down, Superman just takes it. He's like, he doesn't block it. He doesn't do this. He just lets it hit the shoulder and goes, is that all you got? And then he just destroys Steppenwolf. Like, it's not even because you notice in the entire movie, they're hyping up that the Apocalyptians are scared of Kryptonians. And then that moment, they answer that question really, really clearly.
Why?
And then the third scene is actually the end before the epilogue, when they have them all like on that little they have them all standing there looking epic, and then they're all in the sun, because remember Jor-El said, and they will join you in the sun, Cal, and you will help them accomplish wonders. So I'm like, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, like, I want to go back to that Jor-El scene, Jor-El and Park Kent scene, like, because that's probably my favorite scene in the movie. Even the Flash, above the Flash scene when he's running back in time, which is probably my second favorite. But these moments where, like, So there was one moment where at the end, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was Silas Stone doing a speech about like to his son, because he Cyborg
the recorder.
recreates the recorder and listens to his dad's message, and he's like, you see all the different Justice League members doing that, you know, Aquaman's driving off to his dad, Wonder Woman's like thinking of going back to Themyscira, going back home, you know, and then you just see that splash page of the Flash.
He's Naruto running.
And like, I'm like,
and then they follow it up.
Comic come to life.
And then they follow it up with Superman finally doing the shirt rip.
Yeah, I do. I have to say I would have rather him in the blue and yellow at that point, but that aside,
he was still in the black suit. I'm like, okay, whatever. Zach, you've done enough. Yes. You've done enough now where I can forgive you for that. Like, but it's like, dude,
I wept like a baby when I saw that, because I was just like, it was just building up, and then that flash bit where I'm just like, dude, I can't. I had to pause it again.
It's like going back to that
if you're a DC fan, how can you not love this?
If you're a Justice League, if you're a fan of any of these characters, because that's what that's one of the points that I brought up when I reviewed the movie. I'm like, somehow, because in a team movie, it's really hard to give each character their moment. Zack did it. Everyone got their moment. Where if you're a fan of the Flash, you got multiple moments where it's gonna pay off for you. Superman, hell yes. And it's like all these characters got, like, if you're a Cyborg fan, you got a pretty good moment for Cyborg. It's like somehow it serves every fans of the Justice League.
The other moment, which is the most, I'm gonna say it right out now, the most heroic thing I've ever seen done in a superhero movie, period, is that Cyborg scene when he helps that woman.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't even want acknowledgement. You know,
he walks away.
You can say what you want about like Wonder Woman saving the city or the town, you know, which is pretty heroic, where she just walks across no man's land and like, oh, yes. But she at least, she kind of wants some acknowledgement, right? Like, there's you know, scenes like Iron Man and whatever, like, you know, where he saves the village in Afghanistan. Again, wants acknowledgement. But this is just a private moment where he just scans through this woman's life and just is like, I'm a god and I can help this woman.
I can help one person.
Yeah, I can help one person. I don't need to beat or punch or whatever, or anybody. I'm just gonna help this woman because I can. And he just does. And it's just beautiful. And then he just walks off.
And then immediately, as soon as that scene ended, I was like, who at Warner Brothers decided to cut that out?
Well, I'm glad they cut it out. I'm forever, I'll say this about Joss Whedon. I'm glad he cut out every single fucking great scene that
so we can experience it for the first time
with the Zack Snyder cut. Because you know, in that 2-hour cut, if that had have ruined that Flash running back in time scene, I would have been pissed.
Oh yeah,
because it wouldn't have hit the same, you know, and it wouldn't have looked the same because
it'd been super oversaturated and all that.
The way he directs stuff looks ugly as shit. I go all the way back to the original Avengers movie, which I actually like. I like Joss Whedon's Avengers, but it looks like a piece of shit. Like the way it's filmed is like a TV movie. It's like it's not you know, the CGI looks good, but like the I don't know what it is, like the coloring and all of that, it just looks so candy coated and just not great to look at, but the action's good and blah blah blah, so I forgive it, right? And he did the same thing with the Justice League, and it just looked like an ugly piece of shit movie. And if he had tried to do that running back in time scene, oh my god, I don't know what it would have looked like. You know, geez. So I'm glad he took out all the Cyborg stuff. I'm glad he took, you know, all of that stuff that I, you know, liked, because even like the Wonder Woman scene, right, in the bank, I would have wanted to see that for the first time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like without his trash into. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that, right? His Wonder Woman version of that bank scene versus Zack Snyder's.
Oh, Zack Snyder was way better.
And then think about what he could have done to the Flash running back in time scene.
Yeah, I see it. He would have had the Flash like trip and fall.
I don't know what he would have done, but it wouldn't have looked.
I think.
I don't know what.
Well, I think an indication would be like him having what as deciding it'd be funny to have Flash run into Wonder Woman.
Something, I don't know, something like that. Who knows what he would have done? But like, I'm just glad he cut his. Even the Superman versus the Justice League fight, that was ruined for me. Or not ruined. Sorry, again, spoiled. I should say not ruined, spoiled. But it's like, the fact that I saw that scene before, it's like, oh, you know, because I want that to be a surprise, you know, and the way it looks in the Zack Snyder version, even though I've got a rant on that scene where I go, I'm not going to like Zack Snyder's Justice League if this scene is the same. Because like, I actually have a rant like on my channel, because I was like, the disrespect to Wonder Woman and the Flash in that scene was too much for me. I was like, Flash should be as faster than Superman. Wonder Woman should be able to like do some stuff too. But the fact of the matter is, thematically, the way it plays into the story, I could forgive it in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I was like, oh, I don't love it, but the context, I get it. Why they had to have Superman be that, you know, that OP. And then finally, the way it's filmed is so gorgeous. It's so beautiful that you're just like, F it, man. Just give me more.
Here's another fantastic moment I don't think we've talked about, when they decide to revive Superman, where we have the camera circling every member of the Justice League is slowly putting the piece together, and then and it starts playing the Man of Steel Superman theme. Then Barry Allen goes, I know what everyone's thinking. Who's going to say it? And then Cyborg just illuminates a hologram of Superman. The music swells, and you zoom in on Batman, and he's like, and then you know that's how they decide to revive Superman. They don't have a fight or anything like that. They all come to the same conclusion. And then Batman goes, "There's no us without him."
I didn't like that.
But it goes back to my.
I didn't like him saying that, and I didn't like Wonder Woman saying we can't do this without him, because that's not Wonder Woman for me. Wonder Woman always believes she can do, like, you know.
It does kind of back up my point earlier about how they all take their cues from him, though, from Superman.
True, but it's like, I've never liked that in the comics either. I've never liked when they're like deferring to Superman. It's like the Justice League are badass, you know, like they can, each one of them's a badass. This movie, I'll have to say as well, like, I never thought I'd be interested in a Cyborg movie. Never thought I'd be interested in the character at all. Made me interested. I was like, oh, give me a Cyborg movie. Okay. You know, like, I really thought they did such a good job with Cyborg. He was one of my favorite characters in the movie. Like, he didn't trump Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman. I loved the Hope arc with Batman. You want to talk about the Hope arc with Batman in The Batman? I love how he did that Hope arc. With Bruce Wayne. You know, actually, for once, I'm not thinking about things logically. I believe
strictly on faith. And it's like, when they leave, as Batman goes, he'll be here, Alfred, I know it. Well, how can you be so sure? Faith, Alfred, just faith.
Right, exactly.
And I also loved where one of my favorite lines, and it was actually in the first trailer for the Snyder Cut, where Batman goes, I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hills, he's never fought us united. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, it's just a really. It starts off a little slow. I'm not gonna lie. There's an aspect of it where it was like, you know, Aquaman singing ladies and a bit of slow mo with Lois Lane. Even though I liked Lois Lane for the most part in this movie, the Martian Manhunter stuff, I'm like, I could have done without. Even though Martian Manhunter is one of my favorite characters, I really don't like him as that old general or whatever.
But that's showing he's always been like helping from behind the scenes, though.
Has he really? How did he? But independent of that, those are like minor, like kind of like things, nitpicks and stuff like that. But I see them as genuine criticisms of like that the movie has a little bit of excess. But like for the most part, I just think it's such a loving,
Tribute.
meditation and tribute to how he views this. This is, and this is where I really forgive it for even some of the things I don't like about it, because this is Zack Snyder's Justice League, as they said.
Yeah.
This is just like, what's his name? Alex Ross has his Justice League. Alex Ross's Justice League, Jeff Johns' Justice League, right? Like they all keep the spirit of the characters, but they imbue it with their kind of vision of the world, right? And I love that. I love that, rather than trying to just be like, oh, let me just try and appeal to everyone.
Yeah.
Let me just try and, everyone who's a Justice League fan will get on board with this. Like, I want to see your take, what your version, just like I would if I wrote the Justice League or I wrote like a story. I'm going to do it from my point of view. I'm a black guy living in Britain, right? Who's, faced like certain things, adversities and stuff like that because of that. And I want to, if I wrote a Justice League or I wrote a Wonder Woman, I'd want it to reflect some of that, some of my personal experience and why I love these characters and why they mean so much to me. And that's what I saw in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
He showed why these characters mean so much to him, what he thinks of these characters. And I think he did a damn good job of making it like making them in his way of seeing them as the Greek gods.
Yeah. That's
how Zack Snyder sees them. He sees them as the Greek kind of pantheon come back to life in comic book form, like as the American mythology. And I think he really did a good job of grounding it as well, somewhat. Like, not grounding it so that it took out all of the fantasy elements, but grounding it in the sense of like, what would Aquaman, talking in the sea look like? Oh, maybe
what would happen if Superman, a guy that has the powers of the gods, actually showed up?
Right. Yeah. Like. So he was like, and people were making fun of it, and I was like, actually, I kind of dig it. I wouldn't have liked it in the Aquaman movie, but like as a like little side thing in the Justice League movie, I kind of liked it, where you saw that they were speaking in echolocation.
Yeah, that's
like
actually
the Atlantean.
cool.
I thought, yeah, why has everyone thought of that? And then to actually speak properly, they have to have the bubbles around them. I was like, he's really committed to thinking about what these characters would be like if they were in real life, how people would react to them, respond to them. And, the Aquaman singing ladies may have taken it a little bit too far, but they would praise them as gods. That's what they would do, so that was something, like him as the sea god, him
as Poseidon, yeah, exactly.
Poseidon. So yeah, that was I just, to the end of days, I will never be able to wrap my head around comic book fans, and specifically Justice League fans, that dislike it. Other than I think that the MCU has trained people to think comic book movies should be a certain way.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's why I've said on the channel, the MCU ruined comic book movies because it made people think they're all supposed to be these up joke fests, and they can't be complicated in any way. They have to be simple and everything. And that goes back to even when like the early DCEU happened, because that was part of one of the criticisms I saw. It's not like a Marvel movie because it's not Marvel.
Right. And that's why I said, like, Warner Brothers just needs to quit trying to appeal to this MCU fan base. They're gone.
Yeah, they're gonna be with the MCU, dude. So there's nothing you can do.
Just forget about it. Just try and appeal to people who liked. Unfortunately, there's this infighting now, which I hate. Like, I think the Batman's a great movie. I think Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice
There's
League is
room
a
for
great movie.
everyone.
I think I don't like Suicide Squad, but I understand why people like it. Whatever.
I wasn't a fan. I hated Peacemaker. I couldn't complete the entire series. I watched 3 episodes and I was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah, I think The Boys shits on it, by the way.
Yeah, The Boys is way better, but
yeah, it makes the Peacemaker look like an embarrassment. But like, whatever, James Gunn, he did his thing. I get it. But things like Shazam, I'm just like, Shazam's a good movie. It's faithful to the character, and it takes his mythology, even though it has some jokes in it. It takes his mythology seriously. It doesn't, when it comes time for the serious moments, when he's talking about adoption and how he feels about being adopted fostered and being part of the foster system, it takes those moments seriously.
Plus, wait a second, Shazam is a jokey character, so it makes sense for the character.
Right. So I don't that's why all this infighting with these guys are just it hurts, because I think DC fans, if we were united, I mean, maybe I do it myself because I don't like Aquaman and stuff like that, and I know a lot of people do like Aquaman. I at least it wasn't an MCU movie.
Yeah,
that's what I like about it. That's what I like about it. At least it was a director taking his own directorial approach to Aquaman, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
If it was like trying to be an MCU movie, it would have pissed me off a lot more. But for me, it was just too much action, too little substance. That was my kind of problem with it. I thought that Shazam had the opposite problem: too much, a lot of substance, maybe a little light on the action. But I don't think Shazam should be doing combos on people and stuff. He's a child, You should fight like a child, and that's what I appreciated about the action in it. Like, it was true to the spirit of the character and who he was.
He's throwing Batman action figures at the villain. Yeah, exactly. He's like, get him, Batman.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense to the character. I don't know why people want him to be some serious badass. He's not a badass. He's a kid. That's not
the character. Read the comics.
And it's the same with Flash. I don't know why. When did everyone think Flash was some badass? He's not Batman. He doesn't come in like do fucking. He is that. Oh my god, that was another scene, dude. The sweats I had. I have to describe the scene. When just before Flash pushes the parademon and he comes up and he goes, "We're not doing this properly. We're not doing this."
Yeah, and he's like going up against the wall. He's like, That was so good.
That is so Flash, bro.
And it's so funny too. It's like he's like up against the wall. He's like,
and he's like, and you see him just for an instant second, but that is so Flash. That's Flash.
And where the rubble is falling on those people, so he super speeds and like pushes all the rubble away.
Yeah, dude, it was incredible how he decided to capture the Flash's powers, dude. Just everything. I love even that scene where, like, a lot of people don't like it. Again, I don't understand why. Where the Flash slow motion saves Iris West. I thought that was beautiful. I don't know. They're insane. What? They're insane, but they love
where she pushes the window and it like breaks in slow motion, like from the trailer. I was like, yes.
Yeah, but these are the same people who love, like James Gunn when he does all his silly music during his scenes, and they love like what was it? This Hulk scene where he's going to get to New Asgard in Endgame, and it's like, let me take you on a little trip. It's like, keep it consistent. So
stupid.
It's like I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think maybe I don't know. It just depresses me. Honestly, I'm just like, you can like the MCU movies that they're like McDonald's of superhero movies. I like McDonald's. I like a McDonald's burger every once in a while. It's not like I'm, too snobbish to like McDonald's.
Which is why I love the Winter Soldier, because there was something different.
Yeah, but it isn't like, like, dude, when you get like a different comic book movie where it's like, oh, I'm going out to a fine Italian restaurant today. Don't be like, oh man, you know what? You're going to a fine Italian restaurant. You know what? You're too big for McDonald's now. No, it's just I like fucking variety. You know, sometimes I like to go to an Italian restaurant. Other times I like to go to a Lebanese restaurant. Sometimes I like to go to McDonald's as well. Right? Like, can't we have it all?
We can.
You know,
there's room for everything.
I think that was what DC was doing. You know, people say I'm silly, but I like the first Suicide Squad movie.
I do. I hope we get David Ayer's version, but it wasn't as bad. It's not as bad as people say it is. It's no Justice League. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it's not as bad as Justice League. I'll give it 65%.
Yeah, I'd say that's about that. There was more I enjoyed in that movie than I hated. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So I watch it every once in a while and still like, I love that guard, the guard who offers him toenails or like spring break.
That was so good.
I thought he was funny, and there's a like, I just the movies that I don't like of the DCEU are all the movies that are trying that either take a Marvel director or, you know, clearly are trying to be like MCU-ish. Those are the movies I just have no time for, like Justice League and Suicide Squad, because it's just like, you're never going to win those people, or even Birds of Prey. Even though, actually, I've watched Birds of Prey recently, and I was like, it's bad, but it's not like garbage. It's not Captain Marvel bad. You know?
Yeah, it's not Captain Marvel bad, but it's definitely not my favorite DC.
It's not one of my favorites. But again, it's like that thing of like, let's inject some humor and light and blah blah blah. And it's like, you know, Wonder Woman 84. It's like, why did you do that? Like, you had a perfectly good formula with the first movie, and then you just switch it up, and you start going, oh, this isn't even a sequel. It's like a continuation, or what? You had a good movie in the first one. Now you've got a bigger budget to make them something.
It astounds me, brother. It astounds me.
It's because Patty Jenkins, let's quite face it, didn't read the comics.
Yes.
The screenwriter of the first movie did all the research for her.
Because the minute she says, I got concerned the minute she said, well, Wonder Woman's not a warrior. I went, what? What?
When did she?
You know why? She said it during as a justification for why she took away the sword and the shield.
God.
And I'm like, this is a big problem here. Wait a second. Yes, she's a warrior. I saw an entire movie about her being a warrior.
There's so many comics she could have adapted instead.
Oh, yes.
You know, like she should have adapted, say, for instance, Eyes of the Gorgon as the second movie. That would have completely fit in. You know, when Wonder Woman chops off Medusa's head before she turns the whole city to stone. That would have been beautiful.
Yeah, that
would have been a great second movie. She could have done Wonder Woman and the Circle.
Yes.
Made it a little bit more complicated, like a little bit more, you know, like added things so that Wonder Woman has to go back to Themyscira, right, and save the Themyscirans from like Alcyon.
Yeah.
She just took the easiest route. She's like, oh, who are Wonder Woman's villains? Cheetah. Okay, like let's do a Cheetah story.
Who'd she encounter once? Maxwell Lord? Okay, she killed him. Well, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's like, I just like, dude, you know, you could. It's just it's a failure on so many different levels. But I'm just saying, like, if you don't have a good idea, do your research. And then maybe, you know what Matt Reeves did? He did his fucking research.
He clearly did. He clearly knows Batman.
You know, and then he did something different. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He took all of those things that he absorbed from the stories, you know, like a little bit of Earth One, a little bit of Batman Ego, a little bit of, you know, Long Halloween. Took all of that and then goes, all right, now I'm going to say something different and interesting about Batman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what she did. She watched Superman 3 or something and 4 and decided to like.
She was trying to make a Christopher Reeves movie for Wonder Woman and it was just horrible.
Yeah, stupid. Yeah, it was very stupid. And she was really like one of my heroes. You know,
oh yeah, particularly after Wonder Woman 1. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just was like, look, I wouldn't mind her taking off Wonder Woman 3, honestly. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I think she should be able to give a pitch for Wonder Woman 3.
Or she has to have more oversight because that's the thing. In Wonder Woman 1, she had oversight. Wonder Woman 2, they said, go create.
Yeah.
And we all know how that turned out.
She decided to write the thing. Why? Why would you write it? You're a director. Clearly, you're a director. I know she wrote Monster and everything like that, but that was a story that already existed. So, you know, she just had to like take it and add the dialogue, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but creating your own story, then having to do the dialogue, then having to do like then having to direct. That's a lot to take on by yourself. You know. So anyway.
Well, on that note, I think it's a good place to leave it.
To leave it, yeah.
For tonight, I'll tell you, we'll have another episode where we talk all about the Wonder Woman movies and Patty Jenkins and stuff. But Nerdman, it was a pleasure having you on the show. You're always welcome.
You too. Well, not that you're always welcome, but it was a pleasure talking to you as per usual.
And on that note, hope you guys like got another perspective. In other words, we encourage you to like take another look at like the Ray Fisher stuff, and then also just understand that the Trinity more from two self-proclaimed Trinity experts. On that note, stay heroic, everyone, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.